They say your graduation day is supposed to be the proudest moment of your academic life. Mine began with the slow unraveling of a dream and ended in the kind of silence that swallows sound, pride, and hope. It was a hot Monday afternoon. The sun was burning holes through the sky, and students buzzed across campus like bees, collecting gowns, rehearsing photo poses, finalizing their makeup trial appointments. Laughter bounced off the old concrete walls of the administration block, where I stood in line, clutching a small blue file containing every document I thought I needed: payment receipts, ID, clearance forms, and that quiet confidence you carry when you believe everything is finally coming together. I was next. The woman behind the bursar's desk wore thick-rimmed glasses and a wig so big it could host a bird's nest. She didn't smile. She didn't look up. "Matric number?" she asked, fingers already typing. 231015, I replied, stepping forward with my file held high like an offering. She squinted at her screen. Paused. Typed again, then she frowned. I felt the shift in energy like a drop in air pressure before a storm. "I'm sorry, you've got an outstanding balance," she said flatly. My heart dropped. "No, that can't be right. My mom said she paid the full fees last semester." The woman didn't flinch. "It says here, tuition for final semester unpaid, $2,180. She turned the monitor slightly, as if giving me visual proof would soften the blow. The red ink on the digital receipt was blinding. "Maybe there's a mistake," I said quickly. "Can you double-check the name? Maybe the payment didn't reflect." "My mom." "Miss," she cut in, her tone now tinged with impatience. "If it's not here, it's not paid. You can go to accounts, but either way, no clearance. And without clearance, you can't graduate." I stood there, stunned. Her voice had become a distant echo, drowned out by the loud rush of blood in my ears. Around me, other students were laughing, hugging, throwing jokes about gown sizes and high heels. I was frozen, rejected, and it wasn't even my fault. I stepped away from the counter in a daze and stumbled out of the building. The heat outside felt suffocating now, like the sun itself was mocking me. I found a concrete bench near the library and sat down, fingers trembling as I pulled out my phone. I dialed mom.no answered. I dialed again. Nothing. I sent a text. "Emergency. Call me. Now." Still nothing. The ache started low in my chest, like someone had tied a string to my heart and was pulling it, harder and harder. I should have been picking up my graduation gown. Instead, I was watching my future blur behind a wall of red ink and silence. My phone vibrated. A message. I snatched it. "Mum, I'm busy right now. We'll call you later." That was it. I stared at the message, reread it 5 times. I wanted to scream. Cry. Throw something. But I just sat there, my eyes dry, my body numb. What did she mean later? My future was unraveling in real time. A part of me still clung to the idea that this had to be a mistake. An error. Something easily fixable. Maybe the bank had delayed processing. Maybe mom had used the wrong payment portal. Or maybe, just maybe, someone at the school had entered the wrong data. Yes. That had to be it. With the tiniest thread of hope, I walked across campus to the accounts department. The office was small, stuffy, and smelled of old paper and stale sweat. A short man with tired eyes looked up as I entered. I explained everything: my matric number, the claim that fees were unpaid, the urgent need to verify. He tapped his keyboard lazily. "No payment logged after second semester," he said. "Nothing in third or fourth." "But she said," I started. "There's nothing here," he interrupted. "If she paid, get the bank receipt." I nodded and left, not because I believed him, but because I had no other move. I texted mom again. "There's no record of payment. They say nothing came in after second semester. I need a bank receipt or confirmation or something." 10 minutes passed, then 15. No reply. I started walking home, each step heavier than the last. By the time I reached our compound, my feet felt like bricks. She was sitting on the couch, legs crossed, a plate of jollof rice and fried plantain balanced on her thigh. The television blared an episode of My Sister's Secret, some overdramatic Nigerian telenovela with actors who screamed more than they acted. She looked up briefly. "You're home early." I stared at her. She didn't look worried. Not even a flicker of guilt. "They say you didn't pay my school fees." She blinked. "What?" "The finance office. They said no payment was made this semester. Nothing since second semester." She waved her hand like she was shooing away a fly. "There must be a mix-up. These school people are always messing things up. I'll check tomorrow." "No, Mom. They said it clearly. I'm not graduating. I'm not even cleared. You promised me it was paid." She lowered her fork, slowly. Still calm. "There was an issue," she said. "But I'll sort it. Don't worry." My chest tightened. "What issue?" "I just had to move the money around." "I'll pay. Just give me time." I took a deep breath. Where is the money now? She said nothing. That silence was louder than any confession. I walked to her room. She didn't stop me. I opened her purse and found what I didn't want to believe, crumpled betting slips, one after the other, all from the Gold Spot Casino. Some dated back months. Others, just days ago. She hadn't paid my fees. She'd gambled them. I stood in the doorway of our living room for a full minute, just watching her. My mother, in her usual threadbare wrapper, was laughing at something on TV and eating fried plantain like the world outside didn't exist. She didn't even notice me at first. That hurt more than I expected. Mom, I said finally. She looked up. You're back early. I went to the finance office today. Her fork paused midair. Yeah? What did they say? I dropped my bag onto the couch. They said I'm not cleared. My fees weren't paid. No gown. No graduation. She blinked once, then reached for her glass of Coke. There must be a mistake, she muttered. They always get things wrong. You know how schools can be. I swallowed the lump rising in my throat. Mom, they printed out a full breakdown. There's no mistake. She looked down at her food, stirring it aimlessly with her fork. I told you I'd sort it. No, you told me it was done. There was a long pause. The only sound in the room was the exaggerated weeping of a character on the TV. I just needed to borrow the money for something urgent, she finally said. Don't worry. I'll pay it before your graduation. I took a step closer. What was so urgent that you used my tuition money? Another pause, and then, a lie, house repairs. I stared at her. What repairs? The plumbing. And, the fridge stopped working last month. You were at school, so you didn't notice. That was the moment I knew for sure she was lying. The fridge had been working fine when I left for the hostel 2 weeks ago. And we'd lived with a broken tap in the bathroom for 6 months. She wouldn't look me in the eye. I turned and walked to her room. She didn't stop me. I opened the drawer she always kept locked, but I'd found the spare key years ago. Inside were receipts. Dozens of them. Crumpled, greasy, smelling of cigarettes and desperation, betting slips, all from the Gold Spot Casino. Some were dated 3 months back. Some were from last week. The amounts were wild. $50, $200, even a $500 bet on some rigged football match. A wave of nausea hit me. I stumbled back into the living room and dropped the slips on the table in front of her. What is this? She didn't answer. You used my school fees to gamble? Still silence. Mom. She looked up slowly, her face blank. It's not what you think. Oh really? I laughed bitterly. Because it looks exactly like what I think. You took the money meant to secure my future and threw it at slot machines and fake sports scores. I needed to double the money, she said, voice tight. I was trying to make more for us. I thought I could win it back. My legs gave out, and I collapsed onto the couch. So you risked everything. And lost. She stood up, voice rising. Don't you dare talk to me like I'm a failure. I've raised you alone for 18 years. I fed you when your father ran off. I sacrificed for you. I looked at her, heartbreaking. Then why would you sabotage the one thing I worked for? Why would you lie to me? Her voice dropped. Because I was ashamed. I almost believed her. But then her face hardened. And maybe, she said bitterly, you're not as strong as you think. You break down too easily. Always whining. Maybe you wouldn't have made it through graduation anyway. That hurt more than the gambling. More than the lies. You really think that? I asked, voice shaking. She didn't answer. I grabbed my bag, my file, and whatever dignity I had left. I'm leaving, I said. To where? I don't know. But I'm not staying here while you burn down my life for a quick thrill. And with that, I walked out into the night, ungraduated, unpaid for, and completely alone. But something had shifted inside me. Whatever happened next, I wasn't going to let her be the end of my story. I didn't go far that night, just far enough that I wouldn't hear her voice or see the glow of the TV through our front window. I walked until the streetlights thinned out and the familiar parts of town felt foreign. Eventually, I found a quiet bench near the back of the 24-hour cafe where I worked weekends. Grace, my manager, was locking up. She paused when she saw my face. You okay? She asked. I opened my mouth to lie, but something inside me cracked. No, I whispered. Can I sleep in the back? Just for tonight? She didn't ask questions. She just nodded. That night, I curled up on a flour sack in the storage room, holding my file against my chest like it was armor. I didn't sleep. My body was still, but my mind paced all night. How could she? How many times had I skipped lunch to stretch her money? Turned down outings, avoided buying clothes, even lied about having menstrual cramps just to stay home from class because I couldn't afford transit. Also she could feed machines that beeped and blinked and took. The next morning, I decided I needed proof. Not just for school, maybe for myself. To finally see how deep the hole went. I knew she wouldn't skip a day of her addiction. So I followed her. She left the house around 10 a.m. wearing a scarf tied low over her forehead like she didn't want to be recognized. She didn't take the bus toward the pharmacy where she claimed to work part-time. She headed downtown instead. I stayed across the street, careful not to be seen. She entered a plain gray building wedged between a liquor store and a pawn shop. No signs. Just a flickering neon light that read the gold spot. I felt like I was going to vomit. She stayed inside for 3 hours. I counted every minute. I watched other people go in and out, some jittery and broke, some laughing like they'd just robbed heaven. The place reeked of desperation. Of people hoping that one more game, one more card, one more spin would fix everything. I thought of all the times she told me we were broke. That she didn't have money for a better phone or extra classes. I thought of how I believed her, how hard I worked to be understanding. And the entire time, this was where our rent, food money, and my tuition had gone. When she came out, she looked tired and bitter. She made a phone call while walking, her tone sharp and defensive. I couldn't hear the words, but I didn't need to. I saw her slam the phone into her purse with the same fury she used when reality didn't bend to her will. I followed her all the way back home but didn't approach. I didn't want to fight. I wanted options. I needed a plan. Money. A miracle. Anything. But first, I needed to get as far away from her as possible. Later that night, Grace let me stay again in the cafe storeroom. She even offered to let me help with extra night shifts. It's not much, she said, sliding me a roll and a cup of tea, but it's honest. I nodded. Honest is enough. But inside, I knew honesty wasn't going to cover $2,180 before the graduation deadline in 10 days. And then, as if the universe was determined to test me, my phone buzzed. Mum, come home. Let's talk. I stared at the message for a full minute before deleting it. I didn't want to talk. Not until I figured out how to fix what she'd broken, because she hadn't just gambled away money, she gambled me, and I wasn't going to let her win. I returned home after 2 nights in the cafe storeroom, not because I missed her, but because I needed answers. Proof. Closure. She was sitting at the kitchen table, a half-empty bottle of beer in front of her. She looked up, eyes dull. I was worried, she said. No, you weren't, I replied, cold and calm. You were busy losing my future. Her mouth opened, but I dropped the casino receipts on the table. Don't lie again. She stared at them, then looked at me like I had betrayed her. I didn't mean for it to go that far. You had one job, I snapped. Get me through school. I did my part, I studied, I stayed out of trouble. But you? You gambled my tuition. I was trying to win more. You gambled my life. Her expression hardened. You're ungrateful. And you're a coward. I walked out again, this time for good. Time was running out. 9 days to graduation. I picked up every shift Grace could offer. I delivered food, cleaned bathrooms, ran errands, and even sold my favorite sneakers $4.20. But I was still $1,700 short. I started a GoFundMe and told my story anonymously. A few strangers sent $5, $10. It wasn't enough. One night, a man came into the cafe. Late 40s. Expensive watch. Loud laugh. He overheard Grace saying I needed money for school. After she left, he slipped me a card. I know a few men who'd pay well for the company of a pretty, desperate girl. I didn't even reply. I tore the card and threw it in his coffee. 3 days later, I was summoned to the admin office. Mr. Cole, thick glasses, slick hair, greasy smile, welcomed me in. I've heard about your situation, he said. I stayed silent. There's a way to fix this. Quietly. He leaned closer. You meet me tonight. We come to an arrangement. You walk on graduation day. I forced a smile. Sure, I whispered. Tonight. After lights out. I left and immediately went to Grace. Smile, tonight, lights out, Grace. She helped me record a conversation with Cole's voice clearly offering the bribe. Then we leaked it.by morning. The man was suspended. 2 days to graduation. I had raised only $680. I called my father. We hadn't spoken in 6 years. I told him everything, no drama, no tears, just facts. He paused, sighed, and said, text me your account details. He sent $1,500. I stared at the alert, hands shaking. It wasn't enough to erase the pain, but it cleared the debt. I ran to the bursar's office with proof of payment. They cleared me barely in time. Word spread about what Cole had done. Students started sharing their own stories, blocked graduations, mysterious bribes, fees paid in private offices. By the morning of graduation, a crowd had formed outside the school gates, holding signs, chanting. The local press showed up. So did the police. The school tried to calm the storm with a vague apology, but it was too late. They had turned our futures into business deals, and we weren't staying silent. I didn't get a cap or a gown. My name wasn't in the printed program, but I showed up, wore a simple black dress. Sat quietly in the last row, holding my clearance letter in one hand, my phone in the other, recording it all. When they called the top students, I didn't expect to be mentioned. But one lecturer, a kind old woman from my department, stood up and said, "This young lady taught us what it means to fight with dignity. Let her stand." I stood, and the whole auditorium clapped. It wasn't a gown, but it was enough. After the ceremony, I walked to the edge of campus. Watched as students hugged their families, posed for photos, wiped joyful tears. My mom didn't show up. I didn't expect her to. Grace met me outside the cafe that night and handed me a cupcake with "grad" written in shaky icing. "You made it," she said. "You really made it." And I had that. I didn't have balloons. Or a gown. Or a proud mother waiting with open arms, but I had peace. My graduation was paid for, not in cash, but in sleepless nights, betrayal, sweat, and tears, and that made it mine.